Welcome to MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers.
Hello and welcome back for another episode of MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. And today I'm joined by the fantastic Hilary Lewis, who's the Marketing Director at Winchester Corporate Finance. Hilary, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Do you know, it's probably took me 9 months to get to the point where I was actually happy with how I've introduced a guest. That was probably the first time I feel like, oh, well done, Paul. That went really smoothly. You said it right.
I'm forever putting my foot in it, so I wouldn't worry.
We keep it real on this show. We keep it real. We're just people, and I think there's too many podcasts out there where it's so polished and professional that you'd never guess that there's a real person behind. Look, I'm not a celebrity. I'm just me. I'm just Paul, and you're just Hilary, and we're just having a chat.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I think it now everything. I think there's a lot of pressure on generally for everything to be polished and perfect, and actually sometimes it's better to just get out and do it, isn't it, rather than worry too much about how you're going to get from A to B. Just get it done and then kind of worry about it later.
Done beats perfect every time. So if you're listening along at home, thanks for joining us. Hello. Hilary here she specializes in helping businesses secure the best financing solutions. So she's got over 15 years experience as a business owner, just like you, just like me. And this is why Hilary ended up on the show, right? Is because she's been on the other side of the desk. And she owned a business in the beauty sector and also vacation rentals. And her transition into corporate finance has seen her grow LinkedIn presence for Winchester by a whopping 400% and developed some successful branding strategies to work alongside that. So Hilary is also a speaker and a passionate advocate for women in finance, which is, I can count on one hand how many connections I have that work in finance who are women. So hats off for championing that cause. And Hilary uses her marketing expertise to help drive business growth, as well as fostering that strong client relationships that we mentioned before the show is so key to kind of how you move on, Hilary. I think some things that we learn in our past lives set us up for success in our next career when you finally make that transition. So do you want to kind of is that a good place to start then? Do you think we should maybe start with?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think
lessons you've learned.
I think when you work in beauty, obviously that was the sector. I mean, you're building relationships from the off. Someone might come in initially looking for something like an eyebrow wax, which is a really small 15-minute treatment, and they'll get to know you and they'll slowly trust you enough to then let you, see them naked, touch their body, mess around with their face. You build that trust up, and from there they then introduce you to their, their mom, their sister, the rest of their extended family, and it grows really well. So nurturing those like real long-term relationships was something that kind of really came naturally to me, like making someone welcome them into the business and making them feel comfortable was what I used to do on an everyday basis. And I didn't really realize it was a skill until I came into finance and realized that not everyone's actually like that. But actually that is what the industry needed the most.
Hi, and thanks for joining us for the show. I'm Paul, founder here at Javelin Content Management. We specialize in getting ideas out of your head, down into video, and out to your social media through repurposing and efficient content strategies. If you want to find out how you can convert your ideal audience into paying customers, reach out to us, javelincontent.com, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
So I've kind of come in and shaken things up a little bit. Don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic people within the industry. I'm not saying that it was awful until I arrived, but I don't think that enough people in the industry are actually shouting about that side of things and making finance accessible to business owners, because we're all people, as we said before, and it's hard, I think, to kind of trust someone enough to open up that vulnerability, which is your finances, to them. Because if you, you don't, no one wants to be in a position where they can't run their business because they've overextended themselves, or they're not quite, sure who to actually turn to. So that's what I've kind of done from where I've gone from, at least my starting point.
I see a lot of people in the finance sector and the wealth management sector who are very good at in-person events, and we tend to find whole networking events where you're swamped by wealth advisors and financial advisors, and it's kind of a given because they're the ones that are putting the event on and they're in control of everybody who's come, and you know that there's a hidden sales pitch implied behind it all, and it's all really quite painful, if I'm honest. I really detest that in-person kind of veiled pitch slap. Everybody talks about being in your inbox. I think the in-person ones are even worse. And finance particularly is an industry where it's a crowded market and there's very little differentiation from a lot of businesses. And I talk to businesses, like I'm quite keen to work with accountancies and professional services and financial advisors, because I know, having worked in similar industry before, that all you have to do is differentiate yourself, not the product, not the service, yourself. And that doesn't mean you need to wear big floppy clown shoes. It's just about showcasing why you're doing what you do. So be keen to get your thoughts on that, as well as then leading into nicely from that, like, why did you decide to get into finance based on where you were? Like, what's the common link?
Well, I think basically what sets us apart as a company, so Winchester Corporate Finance, with the way that we work, is we're really customer centric. And rather than being a brokerage that just secures or just sources like asset finance or just does invoice finance, we actually really, our USP is the way that we work rather than the product that we sell. So everyone that comes to us, when they come, we do give them a business review. So first things first, a lot of business owners are using the wrong product already, or think that they want a certain product, and actually the one that would be perfect for their business is a completely different. They might not have even heard of it. So the first thing we do is actually look at them, find out exactly what they need to use the finance for, and figure out what the right product for them would be. When I had my business, what would have been perfect would have been a merchant cash advance for me. And I went to my bank manager, as you do, and they didn't offer that product, didn't mention it to me. I didn't know anything about it. It wasn't until I joined finance that I realized that would have been the product that would have been perfect. And actually it would have worked with my business model so much better than any other product that I used within the 15 years that I was in there. And I'm like, oh, that's not very helpful. But the problem is that, not every, your high street bank might not offer that certain product. So if you actually speak to an advisor who has access to the whole of the market, or a very large chunk of it at least, they're going to be able to understand what is going to be better for you than just going to a business that only offers one product, or is like a search engine, let's say, and they're just it's like a tick box exercise. Like, we are very, very customer centric in our approach. And I think that really does set us apart. And I guess I really like the aspect that when I joined finance, I could literally help people who I had been in that business community that I'd come from, especially, beauty in itself. It's often run by women. On a whole, women in business aren't as established as men. And it's something that I've become really passionate about, because I've learned, since I've been in the finance industry, I was shocked to find out, stats like women as a whole haven't been able to get a business loan since 1988. Before then, we needed a male counterpart to sign for us. So we've just not been sat at that table for as long, and it hasn't been as accessible. And there's a massive gender gap when it comes to like funding and finances. So for me, especially, being able to go back to the beauty community that I came from and really help and provide that level of support has been brilliant. But it's kind of expanded, really, because it's opened up more doors for just women in business as a whole. And obviously we still work with a lot of men. The majority of our clients are men, because there's more men in business than there are women. But like the women in finance aspect, the women in business one has just kind of naturally come hands in hands for me, I guess. And it's been a really nice way of giving back to the community that I came from. But it wasn't a conscious decision that, oh, actually, that's the route that I need to go down. It was just luck that I ended up randomly. My younger sister was working in recruitment, and she hadn't worked in there for before or after, but she was just helping a friend out that happened to be, and she met my boss, and she came back and she was like, I've met this company and I think that you would love it there. And at this point, I'd sold both my businesses. I was just concentrating on being a mum. And I was like, oh, I don't even think, I'm not really that bothered. And she was like, oh, can you please just do me a favor? I just need to at least get them some candidates. And I was like, well, I don't have a CV. What am I going to do? And kind of threw something together. Didn't really think about it. Didn't think I'd get an interview, but it kind of just snowballed for there. And I arrived for it was a junior broker position. And they were like, oh, you're a bit overqualified for this, but you've obviously marketed your own businesses. Could you maybe come back and interview for that role? And I was like, well, yeah, I can. Thinking, oh, I better Google what marketing is officially. No, I'm joking. I had done, as part of my 20 years ago at my HND in beauty, I had done there was a marketing segment within it, but it wasn't digital marketing. It was all like old school marketing. So I did know how to do it, but it was just, it did feel that way, that I was a bit like, oh my God, can I even do this? And I still feel a little bit like that now. I always feel like that kind of imposter syndrome sinks in, thinking, all these very accomplished marketers seem to really know what they're doing. And there's me on LinkedIn, like telling everyone, oh, you should do it this way. And people seem to like it. So,
But that's exactly it. And I find marketers that are classically trained, and I'm just gonna say it, right? Marketers that are classically trained, quite often I find you fucking boring. Right there, I've said it, right? You all talk the same talk, you promote all the same strategies, we want businesses to all do the same things, and we end up shoehorning everyone into the same bucket. But I'm going to hide behind my chartered marketer, degree, whatever. Like, I haven't got a marketer's degree, I don't want one. I was told once I should get one. No, I can't think of anything worse to do with my life than get another degree or another qualification. I'm from the school of life, right? Like, do all these things, we try things. And I think just being able to be unpredictable is what a lot of people need in the current day and age. Is that what you find?
yeah, well, yes, I don't think anyone, well, I like to think I have some content pillars within my social media strategy. But yeah, I don't think I'm undiagnosed, but I do think I've probably got ADHD, and I do actually think it probably helps me in the sense that no one is ever really quite sure what's going to come out of my mouth or the way that I'm going to take something and then answer it or think it. And I don't, know. So I'd like to think that it keeps everyone on their toes a little bit. And sometimes, things will, I think that's the thing, isn't it? An event will happen for a lot of people, perhaps. You'll all go to the same conference or whatever, but my take on it is going to be completely different from yours if we were both there. And I think that's what's helped me so well, that coming into a new industry and being able to just journal what my experience has been and what I'm seeing and what I'm doing, that's what's kind of resonated with people, because I don't really like social media. It's not like my bag. But when I was told, like, oh, well, you have to join LinkedIn, it's the best thing that I ever did. Like, I actually love what I do and how I kind of work it. But there is like effort that goes into it. I think people assume that, oh, if you must just be good at social media. I'm like, no, I've had to learn how to do this. Like, I've learned through the platform, like, massively. I mean, I'm a big geek, so I really like to like test things and look back on the data, and I'll analyze what I'm doing and my top performing posts and then try and replicate those for whatever it is my audience is looking for. But I've learned the most from following copywriters and LinkedIn coaches and getting training and picking up tips, loads. So I feel like I've done more learning in the last like 2.5 years, mainly through like signing up to newsletters and reading social media posts and just, the bite-sized information that my little brain can handle. TikTok is great for me to like learn how to do something. So yeah, I think that's the way to go for it, especially if you've got a really small marketing budget and you can't afford to like go in and go, right, I'm going to blow it all on signing up with some excellent marketing agencies and using their services.
But quite often I find that businesses who can run their marketing themselves in a DIY fashion manage to do things really, really well. But to your point earlier on, right, none of us got into what we're doing to spend half our life on social media and promoting ourselves on LinkedIn and doing marketing exercises. And so for a lot of people, it's just another competing priority, another job that needs to be done. And I'd imagine having somebody like yourself on board who's like, actually, it's the big shiny thing in my world right now is I need to get this nailed off, and this is my job, and I'm going to really nail it. Is kind of, it's invaluable to a business. And I'd say heartily, if you know somebody within your business who's keen to get involved, just hand it off to them, because I bet they'll do a better job than you will.
Massively, especially if they're keen. But I also think, I mean, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like, I would love it if the director of our company would get on board and would start posting. I would love it. But Callum is not going to. He's like, no, it's not for me. I don't want to do it. That's not what I want to do. And then I'm like, right, well, the sales team then, if the brokers can get on and like they'll post, but they're not as, you know, they hate having their picture taken. They're just typical boys in the office, and they're like, oh, for God's sake, Hilary, what are you trying to get us to do now? Like, all right, well, I will do it then. But there's reluctance. But, you know, given their dues, they do, like, they'll chip in when I sort of say, okay, this is what they're like, well, I'll be your cameraman. I've had them filming me jump in the sea in January, and I've had them, like, they've come and they've given their support. So they will muck in. But it, you know, they don't really, I can't say they enjoy it. But
it's not their day job.
You have got, no, that, and they're like, I've got better things to do with my time. Like, that's your job. You do that. I'm going to be really good at sourcing this finance to someone. And that's fair. Like, that's fair enough. But if you've got people within your company that are prepared, like, even if it's just like the secretary and, you know, the cleaning lady, that would be awesome. Because they're still going to be talking about your business, your culture, what it's like to be an employee for you. If they're happy to do that, then why wouldn't you want them? Like, if you don't want your employees, that's when I think that's a massive red flag. If a company's like, I don't want any of you posting, like, well, what are you worried that your employees are going to say? Or why don't you trust them enough? Yeah. Well, even if I think this is where the big corporate companies, they're the ones who are losing out, because they've got no one like saying, oh, this is a great firm, I love them. Like, that's free advertising right there. Yeah. Like, you're going to attract more staff. Like, from an HR point of view, they should be seeing it as like, you're going to attract and retain more top quality staff if you've got people actually wanting to come and work for you. You know, it's crazy. I digress.
I'm a big believer that your senior leaders in any organization, no matter how small the business is, right, your senior leaders are always your best salespeople. And I do totally understand that they're also the most time poor. Like, you've run a business, I've run a business, I know the competing priorities. And hands on heart, right, like, I do video for my clients. That's what Javelin's set up to do. And I still can't be bothered to do my own videos. I still hate doing my own social posts, because I'd much rather be working on client work and delivering for them to see the smile on their face, right? Exactly. So my advice would be, if you're in that sort of a business where the senior leadership kind of, they'll do as they need to do, but it's not really important to them, my advice would be just try and get some time with them once. Showcase to them what you can do with that. Get it on video, turn it into lots of things. And then go, do you know what? Here's what we create from all that. Isn't it impressive? Well, now we can all leverage your experience and your capabilities and your opinions and your sales skills. And we want to do it again next month. And just make it easy for them is my advice.
That's the thing, isn't it? If you can just allow like one day to get it done and sort of time block and have structure to that content. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it depends on how much content you want to make. But yes, as you say, half an hour would be enough. And I think from their point of view, you know, they don't have to, I mean, videos work really well on LinkedIn, but, you know, even if it was just a written post, one a week is going to be better than none a week, isn't it? It's just having that consistency to show up. But
like, we're all so keen to turn up to Teams and Zoom meeting because they're productive, right? Like, we'll just have a Teams meeting that's about content for your business. Record it. That's it. Done. Because I guarantee there'll be 100 bytes within that where you can either click it out, use it as a reel, or you can just take the elements that were discussed about and turn them into posts, and it, you know, feed it into ChatGPT, do what you want with it. You know, there's so many ways to make people efficient. But yeah, well, I think we always have this kind of idea of procrastination over content marketing, because, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort. somebody's got to do it and I don't want to do it. But if you can make it easy for people and just go, do you know what, just talk to me about something you're really passionate about for 20 minutes. Just talk to me and I'll do the rest. Then you can build a real case for us. So anyway, we digress. Hilary, like I looked at your LinkedIn profile earlier on, and you're ranked as a global top 50 women in accounting in 2024, right? That is phenomenal for somebody who's kind of transitioned careers.
Yeah.
What is your passion based around for wanting women to get into the financial sector? Like, talk me through it.
I think for me, it's just coming from a place of not feeling. When I had my business, I felt, I felt really confident. I felt like I knew everything. It wasn't until I joined the finance industry that I realized that I really didn't. And that I touched on it before. I was using the wrong sort of products, and it's not a great feeling to feel like, oh, actually more women. And when you start reading the stats and looking into the data behind like women in business and women who have been, that the gender statistics that come out in the reports on, who's getting finance and how they're applying it and whether they know what to, we're way behind. I mean, we are improving. Don't get me wrong. The more recent data that's come out, we are improving, but we're not improving enough. And I think that coming from an industry, the beauty industry particularly, is so female dominant. I was shocked when I joined finance. I didn't realize that there weren't many women in it. Like, there's no reason for women not to be in finance. There is literally none. It's not like it's a really physical job. You're not asking, you're not asking people to hod carry. You're asking people to sit at a computer and do it. And the more I looked into it, when I started, I felt like I've come from a really inclusive support network. Like, the beauty industry, everyone tends to know everyone. Everyone's super friendly. We're in that kind of nurturing environment. And I was there like, well, I kind of want to replicate that in finance. There's not many women. I find it easier to, show that vulnerable side and be like, actually, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm feeling that much easier to say to a woman within the industry than another man. And that's on me. That's not on the industry. That's just how I feel about it. But I feel like when I first joined, I thought, I'd prefer to, there's not many women here. Why don't I try and meet up with some of the women that are and see what I can learn from them, see what they've experienced, get some tips, And that's what I started. I started doing some women in finance events, and it kind of just snowballed. And I felt like, well, I'm learning here. We also, our major channels, so we obviously market directly to business owners who are looking for finance, but one of our big channels is introducers, and they generally happen to be accountants. And I thought, well, actually, I can learn from peers if I can get women within the industry, but I can also use this to my advantage and actually maybe start building some relationships with some local accountancy practices, maybe get some, relationships and get some business and leads from there. And kind of just started doing women in finance events that were, heavy on the accountancy side. And it just kind of snowballed. I started going to more industry events for accountants and just helping them, support everything that was coming up in these meetings. I was realizing that the problems that women were having within the industry, within the finance industry, they were definitely having those same issues within accounting. And it just meant that from there, that I realized that actually they're also having these problems within business. It is just almost like a female issues within the workplace. And they're definitely running on a regular theme. And it just made me realize that it worked really well for me from a point of, yes, I'm going to get business out of this, but also I'm going to learn, and maybe I can start making the industry change and making more people aware that we should talk about this. Because when you've been sat around a table and women have been pushed out of jobs since they've, left to have a baby, or they've been overlooked for a promotion, or the stories that from around the table were very, very similar. And it was really heartbreaking to listen to, thinking, well, I'm a mom. I've just come in. I don't want to feel like I can't, or can't do as well as the men within the industry. I don't want to feel there have been some awful stories that have come out of discrimination, a lot of sexism, a lot of misogyny, especially at industry events where like alcohol is in, the finance world seems to be quite alcohol heavy, like lots of after hours, like they're not socials, but lots of, soirees, and like it's kind of expected to go out after, after work for drinks, and that's not me. Like, one, I don't really drink much now anyway, but two, like I'm at work for work. I have a home life. I'm a wife. I've got children. They're my main focus. They're who I want to be with at the weekends and in my evening time. I am not going to industry events all the time. That's not what I'm interested in at all. And I thought, well, I don't want to be overlooked or devalued because I'm not prepared to do that. And I don't think, but I don't often think that necessarily comes up for men within the industry. I think that's that's my part and parcel of my job and I'm doing that. Whereas I think as women, sometimes we have to kind of make those decisions of what do I want? Do I want a family or do I want a career? And it was those sorts of conversations that kept coming up, and it just made me think, well, this is wrong. I'm not going to stand for that. That's not what I want for my experience within the industry, and I doubt other women were going to want the same. Not that I can speak for all women, but it just made me kind of a bit more passionate about actually let's try and get some change within the industry and support women better.
I think it's a fantastic initiative, and there's a whole episode. I've spent the last 5 minutes trying not to get on a rant about the childcare industry, because my wife's former childcare industry. She's come and joined me in my business now. I know I've seen it from the inside, and I've seen what she's had to put up with from the inside, and the restrictions that industry not being sustainable puts on the rest of the country in terms of childcare and not being able to return to work and tax not paid and people living on benefits and there's so many things that come from the back of that. It really gets my goat and it really annoys me because I know my wife's probably more capable than I am, and I would promote her to do I'd love her to have her own business and things. She won't. Like that's her choice and that's her decision, but like there is so much more behind it all that I just think like, well, if she did want to do it, she wouldn't be able to do it because she's basically why would she go to work and have to pay her wage to get the children? Oh, I digress. Like I'm trying not to get on that high horse, but I do.
But I think for most families, I think that comes into play a lot, doesn't it? Because it's a conversation that if you're a 2-parent household, it's a conversation that often happens between husbands and wives or the parents. And it is difficult. It's a really difficult conversation to have. And it's not just, I think people sort of are very quick to be like, oh, you're such a feminist. And it's like, well, I'm just an equalitist. I feel like everyone should be treated the same, and we should have to be able to have that conversation and a sensible conversation as a couple and decide, who's going to go back to work, who's going to look after the kids, or how are we going to work this between us? Because that it is, it makes two of you to make the children, doesn't it? It should be a shared. And I think men now, like there's a lot of men. I used to have some fantastic conversations with men within my network who are like, oh, I really support what you're saying, especially if they've got children themselves or they've got wives, or like the allyship is definitely there and strong within a lot. But I think sometimes there's so many things that are really ingrained that we don't even realize as a society that we're actually being a little bit misogynistic within our approach to things without realizing.
It's been done that way for so long that the whole system is built around men being at work. And from a very young age, it's drilled into us. I do totally get where you're coming to from it.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like I don't ever want to offend anyone with what I talk about or what but and then that's the other side of things.
There's a whole other episode on. There's another whole episode on. I'm a white middle-aged bloke who I can't say things without offending people anymore. Because I want to say things to support people, but there are so many pitfalls in supporting them. Am I mansplaining things? Am I just being patronizing? Am I leaving people out? And so it also, there's another side of things where there's this whole, because of the equality
privileged
movement,
white male.
there are so many of us who want to support our, either our wives and partners or the women, or even just, minorities. And like, we're at a point where I don't even know what to say anymore. So I don't, because don't know, wouldn't know how to say it correctly. So
Yeah, well,
like,
we're all
rather
learning.
than
I
risk
think
an
the
argument,
thing is, we're all learning, aren't we? And I think
yeah,
that I think especially when you're on places like LinkedIn and you're putting your opinions out there, it's really hard to not fear things like that whole cancel culture. You don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think it's a windy path to navigate. Like I'm very aware that I don't like to be controversial, but sometimes some of the things I say are going to rile people up. I think I've had it before where the language that I've used, I think I stated some of the facts, but I used it in the way I said it was something like, oh, male, pale and stale, talking about the finance industry. Now, in my mind, I'm saying that because, there's lots of old fashioned views and it's mainly white old men that are within the industry. Now, to me, I'm like, oh, I'm just, saying the data. But so many people get so offended by that statement. It's like, well, the truth hurts a little bit. I don't feel like I'm being controversial, but obviously a lot of people feel that is. So
and
get
there's
back
a lesson there for marketing, right? Which is that indifference kills your business. It is the biggest killer of businesses, and you've got to. I'm not saying be controversial, but you can't sit on the fence forever and be vanilla and be wildly successful at the same time.
Yeah.
And that, I borrow that from Stephen Bartlett because, I think he speaks a lot of common sense at times. Not always, but sometimes. I certainly wouldn't be putting a big blue slide in my office, although my son would love that. I'm not going to lie, I'd like one as well. But I don't think my wife's going to go for it.
I'm awful. Do you know, I'm one of these people that I know who I know on LinkedIn, but I'm not one. You're going to catch me reading fiction and not business books. Like I am not one to sit down and read like I on those kind of scales. So I couldn't have picked out Stephen Bartlett from a crowd until like the last 2 years because I've been on LinkedIn now. But
He's on
before that, I
LinkedIn,
was
yeah.
I don't know, he's on Dragon's Den, isn't he? I don't know what he looks like. And
It's true.
I think that sometimes helps in a little way that I'm like, well, if I haven't read what anyone else is spouting off, I'm not going to be regurgitating it. It's not going to be an echo chamber because that's, I think, sometimes what you can get on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
how much of it is nonsense and how much of it is just everyone just nodding in agreement.
30
like,
killer
okay,
hooks that'll get your audience reading
Yeah.
and convert them into customers. Steal mine and use them today. They've all been used for the last 6 years. We're all bored of them.
Yeah.
Nobody, it doesn't work
I'm not
anymore.
a
They're all
fan of
clickbait.
templates. Yeah, I'm not a fan of templates. I can understand why initially people might go, okay, I think the problem is that a lot of the time people talk about, oh, to write a good post or to do this, but people don't necessarily understand what a good post looks like. So it's almost like actually some of the best copywriting posts that I found most helpful were the ones that actually would break down and be like, these are 5 my top performing posts. And then they would break down, look, this is a hook. This is what I've then done. And this is why and that's my call to action. And that's what I've done. And it wasn't until I kind of got that in my head that you need those little elements within a post. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I can replicate that. That's fine. As long as I've got those things, it'll be a good post. But until the penny drops. Yeah.
I just can't. I'll make it up as I go along. I'm not going to lie. I'll make it up as I go along. I write for clients and I write for myself. And every day I just sit down at the desk and go, all right, what am I going to do today?
Yeah.
How many coffees have I had? What ludicrous things am I going to say today? I'll leave people to be the judge of that rather than try and promote my yours.
Well, I just think, no, isn't it? If you write from the heart or if you write something that's going to resonate with other people, if you can pull that emotional side of things, a lot of the time people are like, yeah, you're actually talking sense right there. Or no, I hate bourbon biscuits and I love custard creams. Like I don't, I'm actually the other way around. But if you can add something like that, then it's...
I'm like, biscuits.
Yeah. You can't
Is it
biscuits.
sweet? I'll have it.
Yeah.
Right, Hilary, you and I could go on for a long period of time, and I think everybody will have stopped watching by the time we finish talking. I need to have you back on the show again at some point, so watch this space, people. We will have Hilary back on. It's been an absolute pleasure, Hilary. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think there are so many takeaways for small business owners to just kind of listen to the bits and pieces, not everything. Please don't listen to everything, but listen to the bits and pieces and just take your own learnings from the things that we've discussed today. Hilary, if people want to reach out to you and find out a bit more, how can they discover you and Winchester Finance?
So Winchester Corporate Finance is the best place, I would say, would be our website, which is www.winchester.com. And I am on LinkedIn. So if you find it, I would say that's probably the best place to start is to literally put Hilary Lewis. Luckily for me, there's not many ladies called Hilary of my age group. They're normally that much older. So, and that's Hilary with one L. That's what I would say. And Lewis with an I.
There you go. There you go. Right. Perfect. I will make sure all that's in the show notes. And thank you very much for taking the time to come and share your experiences with us, Hilary. And I'm sure there's loads of snips. We'll get loads of content from this, and we'll be able to share lots and lots of things with the industry. If you're watching along at home, thank you very much for coming along and experiencing another episode with us. By the time this gets released, we're probably heading up to year end for most people. So scary times. Your accounts are due. That bills are due. I hope everything's well for you. Please don't forget to subscribe whilst you're worrying about what's dropped in your email box while you've been listening. And I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.